6 days, 6 games. That's all that's left in this regular season. The Cubs open tonight with the Braves, followed by 3 in Milwaukee, and they're holding on to a playoff spot by 1 game over the Marlins. What are the Cubs going to do? I don't know. We're just going to have to watch and find out. But today I'm going to bring you a bonus episode. I'm joined by my friend Lance Rafdal, who's an Atlanta Braves fan. Came on to banter a little bit and talk about the series and be watching tonight. Are you ready? I'm ready. Here we go. With the Cubs down to their last 6 games and fighting for a playoff spot, right now they sit in a tie with the Arizona Diamondbacks for the second spot, which really puts the Cubs in the third spot. They're 1 game ahead of Miami. They got to stay 1 game ahead of Miami. They got to stay ahead of Cincinnati because they don't have the tiebreakers with any of these 3 teams. So the Cubs are in it tonight, begin a series with the Atlanta Braves, who they beat 2 out of 3 earlier in the year. And to talk about the Braves, I've got my friend Lance Rafdal on. If you might remember him from the offseason, he came on to talk about Dansby Swanson. Welcome, Lance.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So you've had a little bit better season than we have, but maybe the Cubs season's a little more surprising than the Braves season.
I would say it is more surprising. It's been a fun one for me, that's for sure. And if you remember back on our Dansby Swanson discussion, I told you Dansby's a winner. He's going to make everybody better around him. And I think you're going to be really excited to see him play all season. And was I right?
Yeah, I think it's panned out. Now I have to ask you, why do Braves fans hate Dansby Swanson?
I don't know. I would say we don't.
I'm sure it's the vocal minority on Twitter.
That's exactly right, yeah. I suppose they think he should have stayed because, give him the home team discount type thing. But I don't know. That's baloney.
He's not the flashiest of players. He doesn't say a lot. But watching him play defense is something. It's kind of some next level defense there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I assume tonight when he's introduced for the first time, when he comes up to bat, I imagine he's probably going to get a pretty good reception from the home crowd.
I think he will. I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
He should.
Yeah. Everything he did for him over the previous years, they need to give him a warm welcome.
Yeah, I think they will. Maybe there'll be a couple boos tossed in there for effect, but
maybe.
I expect it'll be a good one. I remember the applause that Freddie Freeman got the first time he came back to Atlanta.
Yep.
He may not be loved as much as Freddie Freeman, but he was still pretty loved.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you thinking about the Braves right now? So obviously they've been really good all year. They've been the class of that division by far. I think I was looking back through their season. I mean, they kind of ran away with things really in June. They went on won 19 to 25 games or something like that stretch. Yeah. Compared this year to last year. So last year the Braves again kind of coasted to the playoffs, and then with the new format, they didn't have they did have the bye last year, but then they got beaten that first series.
Yeah, so the last year they got off to a horrible start, and the Mets got off to a huge lead. And so they spent, the last half of the season chasing. Went on that big run in June last year, made up a lot of ground, and then, of course, the last series took 3 or 4 to eke out the division. So that was exciting and fun. And this year's just been kind of awe-inspiring in some ways. They got off to a great start, jumped to a nice lead, and literally, in a lot of ways, just put their throat on, or their boot on the Mets' throat to the point where they sold at the deadline. I mean, that was amazing to see.
That's 2 boots. The Mets had their own boot on their own throat.
Yeah, that's true too. But man, I've never seen a team sell out like that, and we're gonna get it this year, sign all these players, and then fail so miserably that by the deadline they're unloading everybody they can.
Well, it's funny, the Padres weren't as bad, and they also didn't spend quite as much, but they were kind of right there with the Mets. They both went nuts last offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't have anything against the Padres necessarily, but I kind of like seeing those teams that spend stupid money not do well.
I do and I don't. I think as a fan of a Cubs team that has plenty of resources, I don't really want to give incentive for the Cubs to try to spend at that wild card level and just hope to squeak in.
Yep.
I think right now they're building. They've got some young players. We'll see. I think this offseason they'll spend more, but there are definitely no guarantees. I mean, like you can be the A's for years, spent nothing, and still managed to make the playoffs quite a few times.
Quite a bit.
And then you see the Mets. I mean, the Mets. It almost doesn't matter who the ownership is. I mean, they spend a ton of money and
that's the best part.
So, I mean, let's talk about the Braves for a minute. So,
yes.
I mean, the Cubs saw them earlier this year. First game of the series. It actually looked like it was going to be a heck of a pitcher's duel. I think it was Kyle Hendricks against, I think it was Max Fried. He was just back off the injured list. And they were both perfect through 3.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, like in 15 minutes, the Braves scored 7 runs and it was over.
Yeah.
That offense strikes fast. I'm looking at the numbers here, and I see what you've got: 5 guys over 30 home runs. You've got another couple at 20, and even Michael Harris second and Orlando Arcia have a shot at 20 with having 18 and 17 respectively. Like there's just so much power up and down that lineup.
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, and as a comparison to, like we talked about Dansby to open this, one of the things I've seen from Dansby is obviously he plays every day. I mean, I think except for when he was hurt last year, I think he played 161 games, something like that.
And I think the game he took off was the last one, if I remember right.
Okay, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And this year he's pretty much played except for very brief thing early in the season. Then obviously he had the heel injury that took him out for a while. But he hasn't had a game off since he came back from the injured list on, I think it was July 22nd.
Right.
And one thing I've seen from him is down the stretch, he's looked tired. Like his at-bats have not been as consistent. He's had probably too many 0 for 5s with 2 or 3 Ks. Even the last couple weeks on defense, like I still think he's probably going to win the NL Gold Glove. But he's been a little sloppy. He's kicked some balls around, made some plays he typically doesn't. He's made a couple mental mistakes. And I'm just curious, like I know Brian Snitker's mantra is basically play the guys almost every day. What are you seeing down the stretch from the Braves? Like, are they starting to get guys rest, or are they just still doing their thing?
They've had some guys, from what I've seen. Like I said, I haven't watched many games lately, but I'm just looking at lineups and things like that. They've got some guys a few days off here and there, but still pretty much kind of going with the same 8 on a nightly basis, or 9, I guess, if you count Azuna at DH.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple reasons. Obviously, they're going to have that bye, so they're going to have a week off in between.
That's true.
And so he doesn't want to start resting guys a lot now and then have them taking a complete week off, other than with some inter squad stuff and things like that, to start the playoffs. So I think it's good. They're kind of keeping them going, maybe giving them a little time here and there, but definitely want to keep them rolling, hopefully, as much as possible. They've struggled a little bit down the stretch here too, but that has more to do with some injuries in pitching. But I think we're going to get to that next. So
for sure. It can be hard. Like I remember back, I've seen the Cubs go through a lot of these stretches. In 2016, they kind of ran away with everything and didn't have the complications of the bye in the playoffs, but there were some questions about, were they going to be fresh coming into the season? Going way back to like 2008, the Cubs had the best record in the National League. I think they really did kind of coast to the finish. And then all of a sudden, 3 games they got swept out. I think that year was by the Dodgers. So there is some thought about coming in fresh, but
it's definitely it's a tough choice. I mean, obviously you want to try and get some guys some rest and make sure they're good, healthy, and all that. But at the same time, if you're not playing against a lot, if you're taking too many days off, and then now especially with the bye, you can come in kind of it's hard to flip the switch back on, I guess.
Yeah.
As we've seen in a lot of football situations with bye game or bye weeks and things like that too. So
yeah, I'd be curious. I don't think the Cubs are going to be facing a lot of sort of that classic getaway day lineup where half the starters are out. But I do kind of wonder if maybe kind of every day he sets 1 or 2 guys.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Could happen, but I mean, pick any 2, take them out of the lineup. That's still a pretty damn deep offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move on to the pitching. So, and this is obviously there are implications for the series with the Cubs, but also looking ahead to the playoffs. Like this gets into a question of depth. So the way it lines up,
that's where I'm focused.
Yeah, exactly. So the way I look at it first is just the way this lines up. Spencer Strider pitched on Sunday, so he's not going to pitch in the series. So the Cubs miss him, and then Max Fried and
Charlie.
What's that?
Charlie Morton.
Oh, Charlie Morton. Duh, yeah. Those two just recently went on the injured list.
Yep.
I think they went on the list in time to come back for the offseason. Do you think there is the plan for them to be back for the postseason?
Fried he's eligible to come off the day before they have to set the rosters.
Okay.
So he'll be back. Charlie is going to miss it by a couple of days, so he will not be on the playoff roster.
For the first one, yeah.
The first one, yeah.
So I guess at that point you guys go in. Obviously Strider would be the ace, the number one. And I'm sure the Braves will do everything to, well, I guess they have to break off so they can start whoever they want. So I'm sure it will be Strider to start the first. Like, how do you see their starting depth picking up from there? It's
actually not too bad for a 5-game series. Or is it 3 or 5?
5.
5, yeah. I think they'll be okay. Strider or Fried will go 1, 2. I'm not sure which order. And then we got Bryce Elder in the third spot. And I think I read that there's a day off in there to where you can.
There is. I think the way the dates fell, I think the NL series has one off day during the series that the AL doesn't have.
Right. So I think based on that, they can go with 3 pitchers and get normal rest all the way through. So it kind of lines up pretty well for the Braves. Otherwise, they would have been looking at probably a bullpen game or something.
Yeah. Well, I guess that'll be kind of what we see this week. So Elder's going to go tonight. It's going to be Elder against Steele. So we'll see how that pans out. Yeah. Justin Steele is way beyond all of his career highs and innings. His last couple starts have been rough, but on the season, I mean, obviously he's been really, really good. A lot of talk with both him and Spencer Strider in the Cy Young race that I think Blake Snell's now running away with.
Yeah, I think so.
So tell me about Elder. Like, how's he been throwing lately?
I think again, he's got way more innings than ever before. Last couple, I think, have been a little rough too. Been so solid. One of those weird things where he obviously got some time last year, pitched pretty well. He actually started the season in AAA. I don't know how he didn't make the opening day roster, but they sent him down. They had a couple other rookies start the season. They had got roughed up a little bit, so they brought him up, and since they did, he's just been fantastic. To be honest, he's not going to blow you away. He's not a Strider type pitcher at all. He's one of those that, like, how is he getting all these outs? He's just a sinker baller. People just beat the ball into the ground when he's on there. So it's
the Cubs saw him once. They saw him the second game of the last series, and
that's right.
The Cubs actually did well against him that day. That was the day they jumped him for 5 runs in the first, but he did settle out, and he didn't come out of the game until the 5th. So while he wound up giving up 7 runs, he did battle back after a big first inning where I think, if I remember right, Bellinger and Swanson both tagged him for homers.
That's right, they did. I remember that now.
And it was right after they had gotten Candelario, so the Cubs were kind of hot at that point.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the Cubs do tonight. I think tomorrow it's Jamison Tyone going up against. I think that's going to be a bullpen game for the Braves.
I think you're right.
And then I think they're debating an actual starter for the third game going against Marcus Stroman, but I have not. They're still officially TBD on MLB.
They'll probably pull up somebody that's been doing the option game back and forth.
Yep.
They've had 4 or 5 guys that have been doing that all season. So I'm guessing one of them will get called up for that one.
I'm guessing at this point, too, with where the Braves are, like Snitker's going to want to keep people fresh and keep people in their roles and all that. But I assume if, like, all of these games are close and late, like, the Cubs will see the Braves' best relievers, but also there's no reason for Snitker to kill anybody this week. And Whereas, I don't know, you might see Julian Merriweather for 400 innings this week if they're all 3-2 games. We seem to have the same 3 or 4 guys we go to all the time.
It's funny you mentioned that Bryce Elder game where he got tagged for 5 in the first, but ended up pitching into the 5th or whatever. And I guess that says 2 things. One, yes, he got roughed up, but he settled down, was able to limit not allow any more damage after that. And 2, it's how much confidence Snicker has in him, and how much confidence Snicker has in their offense.
Yes. And why wouldn't he?
Exactly. Oh, you just gave out 5. That's cool. We'll get 6 or 8 here in a minute. Yeah. That's what it feels like.
It does. And it's funny because I'm just kind of scanning through the Braves line score, and obviously you guys put up a lot of big numbers and lots and lots of games with 5, 6, 7 runs, which is going to win you a ton of ball games.
Yeah.
But the pitching's been good too. It's not just offense.
It really has overall. When Fried's been healthy, he's been fantastic. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been healthy very much.
I remember his first start back. That was great. That didn't work well.
Luckily now it's just a blister things, and then they obviously wanted to make sure he was ready for postseason, so they just went precautionary and put him on the IL.
Watch out, Marcus Stroman had a blister, and then all of a sudden it was a hip injury, and then fractured rib cartilage.
That's quite that escalated quickly, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It really did.
Oh man, Charlie's been pretty solid. He'll have his ups and downs still, from what I've seen. But Bryce Elder, Strider, blowing everybody away. It's been solid, and then they've called some, like I said, some of those pitchers playing the option game back and forth to AAA and back, picking up starts. They've had some pitch really, really well. They're not consistently because they're not obviously getting consistent innings, but they'll have a great start and be down in AAA for a few weeks and maybe come up for another one. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But overall, it's been good to see, and it's kind of nice getting those kids some big league time and know what they're going to be facing, and what they need to work on. Yeah.
I guess, what are you thinking about the playoffs? So obviously you guys are locked in as the number 1 seed. You'll wind up hosting or having the home field advantage for, I assume at this point, Philly's got the number 1 wild card just about locked down. They haven't clinched yet.
Pretty close, though.
Could be the Cubs. I still think Arizona, because they have the tiebreak, probably has the leg up for that number 2 spot. What do you think about Philly? So last year, Philly, I remember right this time last year, the Cubs swept the Phillies and I thought knocked them out of the playoffs until the Brewers just couldn't accept the gift on their end. And
right.
But Philly got back in, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're in the World Series. Like how have the Braves done against the Phillies this year?
They've played them really well, actually. Again, over the course of the season, but they're a team. They're going to scare me in a short series. They always will. They've got enough firepower. If they get hot, I mean, we saw last year. If that team gets hot at the right time, they can ride that, man. They've got good to really good pitching. Obviously, you still got Nola and blanking on the number 2. They got first 2 starters. They're going to be fantastic, and then after that, it's not quite as impressive as far as pitching goes. With that lineup, there's no Braves lineup, but again, anytime you got Harper and Castellanos and big man.
Yes.
Schwarber. There we go. Schwarber.
Yeah, the big man Schwarber.
You never know what's going to happen with those 3. I mean, was it last I heard, Schwarber was on pace for more home runs than singles? That's one of my favorite things I've ever heard.
He was. I haven't looked at the numbers lately. At one point within the last couple of weeks, he had, I think it was 38 homers and 37 singles.
That's so fantastic. I hope he does it.
It's so funny. He's so classically the StatCast era baseball player, because you look at his WAR, you look at his OPS plus, WRC plus, like those show a good ball player.
Yep.
And then you see he's hitting $197. What are we doing here?
But he's got over 100 RBIs, over 100 walks.
Yep. His OBP's fine because he'll take those walks all day long.
It's crazy. I love it.
It's the leadoff hitter you want to hit 197.
Do you want Schwarber or do you want Acuna in the leadoff spot? I mean, you can make an argument for both, I suppose.
No, I would want Acuna, but I was making the joke that he's the only 197 hitter you'd actually want in the leadoff spot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Acuna, he's been tearing it up this year. He's been amazing.
Yeah. I thought he would get to 40. He finally did. I was happy to see that. This, 40, 60, almost 70 right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get a lot of people talking about an asterisk because it's, quote unquote, so much easier to steal bases now.
Yeah, at some point we just have to have records and acknowledge what the errors were. But
yeah, and I'll say it is the biggest change has got to be the only being able to throw over twice.
Yeah, I agree.
Although he tends to go so early in counts that they don't even get a chance to throw for twice. So is that it or not? I don't know.
Yeah, it's fun. I actually haven't. That's been impactful, but I guess I don't think the Cubs have typically been a team that throws over a ton anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Hendricks and Stroman and some of those guys just tried to vary their timing and hope for the best. Like Hendricks has never been. While he's had a good pickoff move and he's gotten probably a good number of pickoffs over the years, I don't know that he does an especially great job of holding base runners on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been interesting to watch. I remember one game a few weeks ago. Can't remember who the Cubs were playing, but a pitcher just sort of forgot how many times he had thrown over.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably Horner on first base. I can't remember, but he'd thrown over twice. And then the third one was just like a lackadaisical, like step off, toss over.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll go take second now.
Oh, that's funny. And I've only seen it happen a couple of times where they threw over more than the two times.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that's usually the case. They kind of forget about it and they're like, cursory throw over. Or, I mean, sometimes pitchers used to, I think, very timing. So they used to do that to, they changed their mind. I want to throw a different pitch. Okay, I'll throw over. Yeah.
Of course, you can also only hold for so long now. Like you can still get a decent hold in there, but with the pitch clock, you can't hold it like you used to.
No, that's exactly right.
Well, what are your thoughts on the pitch clock? We haven't talked since that started up.
I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's really I mean, other than speed things up in general, I don't think it's made a huge impact either way.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal personally. I mean, it's kind of gone as I expected. I've seen AAA baseball with it for several years now, and I don't know. There's another clock over there, and the first time it's kind of weird, but then you just don't really notice it.
And obviously it has impacted the game time overall, which is not necessarily bad. There's been times I'm like, man, this game is over already. It feels like it just started.
Right.
But I guess, and most pitchers, I don't think were a big problem anyway. But then I remember shortly after the season started, somebody did a side-by-side, and it was a Dodgers reliever. I can't remember who it was or anything, but they showed, I don't remember who it was. It was two teams this season. They pitched they played an entire half inning in the time this guy took to throw 3 pitches.
Oh, that was I'm blanking on his name too, but he was always so slow. He faced the Cubs in the playoffs, and it was ridiculously slow. Yeah.
So for pitchers like that, I'm very glad it's here. Most pitchers, it didn't probably make any difference anyway. And a lot of pitchers have come up with it in the minors anyway, so they probably were already in that frame of mind. But yeah, in those, it was usually relievers that were the ones that were so glacially slow. So in those situations, I'm definitely glad that it lighted a little fire under their hiney.
And I kind of wondered for a while if they were actually going to change the rule, because at some point you've had all the kids come up through the minors that had it.
Yeah. I thought about that too. I was like, well, maybe they don't need to, because most of these, but then, throw it in there, and I guess, it's helped overall still, which is good, I guess. So as far as total game time, so.
Pedro Baez, that's the guy.
That was it. That was it.
All I could think of was Julio Urias, and it was not him. But
Right.
yeah, Pedro Baez was just slow as hell.
Oh, I was watching that, and I probably would have noticed it then, but especially comparing it to, a pitch clock era game, and granted, he probably both extreme examples.
Yeah,
because he was so slow, and I think this one, it was like it was a quick 1-2-3 inning, a couple grounders, early in the count. So it was definitely an extreme example on both sides. But man, just watching it took forever. It's like I was just looking at that Baez, side of the screen, just screaming like, "Do it! Throw the ball!"
Hey, he was playing against the Cubs in that game. That was torture.
That's right.
At least I'm pretty sure the Cubs won that one, but we saw him multiple times in that series, and it was just brutal.
Yeah.
So we got the series tonight, 3 games. We'll see how it goes. Way more important for my team than yours, but
yes.
And I know the Braves are going to compete.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So
it'll be fun. Be interesting to see how it goes. At this point, I just want no more injuries.
Yes. Well, that's one of the big trade-offs. Like, I don't know, because they have the bye. I think you're right that there's not a huge need for rest per se because they're going to be off next week. But
yep.
I mean, you can't have like Acuna or Matt Olson going down with injury right now.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't mean wrap him in bubble paper and not play him, but
right. Acuna, I think they initially called it like a cramp in his calf. I think it was last week. Left the game. They were being cautious with it. And ended up, he missed a couple of games, just made sure everything was good to go, and now he's back out there. So let's just keep going like that. Anybody feels a twinge or or anything, get him out of there.
Yeah, definitely should. Well, that's interesting. I mean, the Cubs are in the spot they're in right now because they couldn't take care of business against the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, and they lost the series to Pittsburgh. But that's kind of how they've rolled this year. Like they went to Washington, lost 3 out of 4 of the Nationals. They got swept in the series by Miami earlier this year, and then at the same time they won the only series with the Braves so far. They beat the Blue Jays, the Rays, the Orioles, both Seattle and Texas. I mean, it's
crazy.
Beat the good teams and lose to the bad. So
that's what I love about baseball in general, because Braves, cruised to 100 wins basically, and I know they lost 2 or 3 to Oakland. And that was like when Oakland was at their absolute really worst. Yeah. They started playing a little bit better later in the season, but yeah, this is fairly early in the season. And
if I remember, Oakland won the first 2 games. We're actually going for a sweep in the 3rd game.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You just never know how things are going to balance.
Well, it's funny too because as a Cub fan, like I'm interacting with other Cub fans on social media or wherever, and they're like, well, the Cubs just don't deserve to win. Like, well, I mean, the Diamondbacks and the Reds and the Marlins have all also lost like inexplicable series to bad teams, and it seems almost like nobody wants to take it.
I'm chalking the Oakland thing up into because I think they flew to Oakland from Atlanta. So first game, they're tired, and then they were playing in front of like 14 people,
12 people,
as opposed to 40,000, and so it just took them a couple days to get that figured out. Playing in that cavernous ballpark with nobody there.
One of the best stories this year was
no matter how much Olsen and our catcher, holy shit,
Murphy,
thank you. can tell them about it. You won't believe it until you experience it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's funny because some of those, like when you get in front of like Wrigley, the last homestand, Cubs are suddenly back in it. Like it's exciting and people want to be there, and that crowd has been loud. I was lucky enough to go to the game on Labor Day when Justin Steele shut out the Giants and the place was electric.
Oh yeah.
And those places energize you and can potentially intimidate you depending on whether they're for you or against you and your experience. But those quiet places also can just suck the life out of everything.
Oh, it's got to. I can't imagine.
I don't know if it's as bad in baseball as it is in football, but
Maybe not, but boy. Can you? I mean, you're used to playing in front of 40, 45,000. People at home. It's lots of energy. People, fireworks going off and all that kind of stuff. And then you get to Oakland.
1,200 people in the stands.
Place probably seats almost 60,000, and maybe 1,200 are there.
Yeah.
It's like it's got to feel like Major League where. People are heckling you from the outfield, and you can hear them.
Well, I heard at least one catcher talk about having to turn the PitchCom device down his ear because he realized that the normal setting, the batter can hear it.
Oh, jeez. That I had not heard that. That is hilarious.
I forgot. I'll have to look up after and see who that was and send it over to you.
Wow.
But yeah, somebody commented on that. Versus on the flip side, like Nico Horner was talking about. As Wrigley started getting loud later in the season, I think he said he typically plays that at 17 or 18 to kill the ambient noise and hear the pitch. And one of the games, the Cubs won. It was thrilling down to the end, and Adbert Alzolay got the save. He had that thing maxed out, and he just heard like the S sound at the beginning. He's like, I'm guessing they're going slider. Because it was just so loud in that place.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
It is, and that's how it'll be in the playoffs. I think most of the teams that are maybe not Arizona or Miami so much, but I think everybody else that has a good shot at going to the playoffs has pretty good following, and it's going to be some good atmospheres.
Yeah, Baltimore's going to be nuts.
Oh yeah, Baltimore will be insane. And if the Cubs do wind up with the third wild card, they'll go play 3 in Milwaukee, and that'll be pretty electric.
Oh, that will be. Yeah,
Milwaukee can fill their stands when the Cubs come to town.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, well, cool. Well, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Where can people find you? I know you've got changed a little bit. You got a stand-up act now.
I do. I'm working on that a little bit. I haven't put anything up there because I only have a few minutes worth of material, and I don't want to blow it on by giving it away online. I'm just on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. So.
If anybody's out in Vegas, where do they come see you?
I bartend at Buck's Tavern. It's on East Side local bar. Good time. We have a comedy night there every Wednesday. I perform there sometimes. I work too much to really get up on stage anywhere else at the moment. So, if you want to check social media, I'll probably. If I do find something, I'll put it up there. May have some other stuff coming up here in a few months that I can kind of let everybody know about soon.
Cool.
Good
luck.
I can't release any information yet, but as soon as I can.
We will keep the secret secret.
Very good.
Good luck with the comedy, and
thank you.
We'll be tuned into the Cub Series this week, and good luck in the playoffs.
Appreciate it. Good luck with your Cubbies, too.
Thank you for listening today. If you like this episode, please drop a rating or a review wherever it is you get your podcasts, and share the episode with a friend. Just a few seconds gives me great feedback and helps other Cub fans find the show. You can find me on Twitter or X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube, all at CubsPS Plus. And check out the Patreon page, CubsPSPlus.patreon.com, to help support the show and keep it ad-free. As always, the music for this podcast is from Prospect Park West by Jerry McCoy. This is Mike Waller, host of the CubsPS Plus podcast. Every day with Cubs baseball or talking about Cubs baseball is a great day. Go Cubs!